Maybe it's not some bookish information. It's something that I experienced. So maybe I guess it should help you and grasp. I can say the context, like why it is called managed and why it is called unmanaged. When it calls unmanaged, the question would be who. I mean, who is managing? I can say who is managing all the transactional calls implementations. Okay, so the question would be that who is managing all the transactional calls implementation? So if the answer to this question is standard SAP, I mean, we are not required to do any sort of logic writing to do this, then it is called manage. Now, all those standard calls that we are talking about can be nothing but all the basic REST API behaviors, or I can say REST API functionalities. For example, be it a create, a read, update, delete, and query. So who is going to handle, or I can say who is going to provide the output whenever I am receiving a create call? Now, upon create call, my expectation will be that a record will be created. So am I required to write any specific logic other than the business logic, because each business has its own set of logic? So definitely business logic is something that you would be writing, but am I required to write any sort of such specific logic for the record to get created into the system at the ABAP layer? If the answer is no, it means it's a managed implementation. Okay. Sorry, I will. Okay, I'll mute all of us. Okay, so in case you have any queries, please feel free to just to avoid any sort of disturbance. Okay, another point is unmanaged. So in this case as well, the question will be same, that who is going to manage all the transactional behavior. But in this case, I can say if the answer is the application developer, okay, then it means it's a unmanaged. Okay, simple. It's a simple thing. Okay, so for example, if I do have a travel table in which I do have something called travel date. Okay, so when I do have a travel date, simple thing is if my user is having a very nice Fiori screen on his device, if he's entering the information in a travel date, okay, and number of other information as well, and the moment he's saying create, then upon clicking of this create button, a record should get created in my travel tables. As simple as that. So in case of a managed RAP application, system itself will take care of this, I can say functionality. You are not required to write any logic in order for the system to insert the data into the database table, update the data into database table, delete, read, or query. You are not required to write any ABAP logic. I am not saying anything. I mean, definitely we have to prepare the skeleton at least, but you are not required to write any ABAP logic. Is not required for, I can say, basic transactional behavior. Okay, so there is a meaning of unmanaged. In case of unmanaged, yeah, we'll need ABAP logic, which we'll be writing. So there will be some new language as well. We'll be learning called EML, called entity manipulation language. This is something we'll be learning, I guess, in some time. So first we'll start with managed. We'll try to generate a RAP service from the scratch, using which we should be able to generate the transactional behavior of an application. So definitely, I guess, as we generated the read-only application, in this case as well, we'll start with a travel, which will be a root node, and there will be a booking, which will be a child node for that. Okay, so using this, we'll generate our first something called a data model. Our very first step. Okay, once we do have the data model, my another step, okay, will be that we'll be generating, I can say at end, definitely the service over here, service definition and service binding. But in between, in order for us to have the managed implementation, we will inherit, or I can say we will generate the behavior definition and behavior projection. So this behavior definition and projection will be responsible. This guys will be responsible for transactional behavior. Okay, so now if we just go over here and just see that particular nice screenshot, maybe you should get a bit of idea over here. So if you see the development flow for managed scenario, so this is where we are starting with. We'll have the definition, I can say our data model generated, and service binding and definition is something we'll also be generating. But we'll enrich this particular data model with the behavior definition and projection, which will play a mediator role. And as a result of it, we'll see a transactional behavior getting generated. Okay, so this is something that we'll be doing. In case needed, additionally, we'll also be writing a ABAP code for that. Okay, so let's just start with that. So I just go here. Okay, so now I'll just close mostly all the things. So at least we are very clear on what we are actually going to do. Okay, so let's just do one thing. Okay, let's wait for a minute. Okay, let's just start with at least one package. So at least we'll have all the objects that we are going to generate for the managed scenario in a single package, and going forward, we'll be able to visualize what all things we generated. Okay, so I'll just say, yeah, SAP RAP, manage RAP application. Okay, we'll be using it for the development purpose. Maybe there is a component called is that local. This is what ideally we have been provided. Okay, let's just use the same transport request over here. So we are starting from very scratch. We have our first package in the system, and into which we'll be generating and creating all the objects for the manage RAP behavior. So I'll just copy this, add this in my favorite package. Okay, so we are ready. So now our very first and foremost thing over here will be that we are willing to generate I can say travel application over here. Okay, so let's just do one thing. So let's just visualize the table that we are going to use as a part of the data source for us. In addition, the one into which we are going to place the entries as well, correct? Because when I say I am going to place the entries into it, it means those will be the table which will behave as a, I can say, data centers for me as well. So these are the DMO travel. These is one of the table that we are going to use. So let's just start with this. Let's just try creating the, yeah. So there is a DMO travel M. So this is going to be my first and foremost table for that. So always follow certain scenarios. So as I mentioned, I guess we learned VDM, right? So the first and foremost thing should be that you are creating interface views. Then you are creating R views. These are the one which will be responsible for transactional behaviors. And the third thing, or I can say very important thing over here, is the C view, which are the consumption. Now the interface views that we are going to create should at least get the data from the database table. So at least we will be knowing what all things it would need. Okay, so for example, if I just start from the scratch, I'll just go and start creating my first view. Okay, here I'll just copy this name and we'll use a keyword called TP. So that is the keyword that you will find in most of the views generated by the standard as well. So the TP means transactional processing. Okay, so that's something that you will see in any of the views which are uh, uh, going to, I guess, carry the transactional behavior logic, or I can say on which the behaviors will be created in a layman term. Okay, so I'll just simply go over here and just say create a core data services. Core data services. I'll just say CDS where it is. So here I do have a data definition. So first thing, your interface views, what it should be. Your interface view should be your entity. Okay. So I'll just say ZI travel for my transactional processing app. Okay. So I'll just say ZI travel, but let's just say this for my managed scenario. I can say travel view for manage scenario, because we are going to implement multiple scenarios, manage, unmanaged, and manage is also having two more flavor, unmanaged, save, and additional save. Okay, someone has already created. So let's just follow our own convention over here that said EO is for EDU ocean. So I guess that will be our own. I don't see anyone else would be using that. Okay, other than us. Okay, so here we'll be creating something called defined view entity. Remember, whenever you are consuming a table, you are going to make it reusable, never make it root, because a root is a component of a business hierarchy, business object node hierarchy. So if you're going to create a root, no one other than you will be able to use it. Okay, so I'll just say define view entity. So at least it would become reusable. So going forward, if I'm going to develop an unmanaged application as well, then also I can reuse this. Okay. So here in this case, the simplest thing which I mentioned over here is that I'll be copying this over here and I'll just specify certain thing. I'll just say MO travel over here. Okay. Now I'll just enter all these fields which I had. Okay. So it just generated certain set of fields for me. Now, okay. So now the thing that we are going to do over here is we would be required to specify certain thing in order for the at least in order for the system to recognize what is the purpose of each and every field. Okay, so first thing, for example, the booking fee over here, right? So booking fee is a amount, so which can be 1,000, it can be varying from a number. But when I say a booking fee, what will it be in a, what will be counted in, whether it will be US dollar or INR or whatever it would be. For that, we have certain semantics. So first thing is you would be generating interface views and enriching it with the semantics annotation. So I'll just say semantics over here. Okay, and in the semantics, what it is, whether it's amount or currency, so quantity. So I'll just say it's an amount. Okay, so if it's an amount, I'll just write AM. Oh, it is taking some time. Yeah, over here. Amount, and then we do have a currency code. Okay, so here the currency code in my case will be something called currency code. So here I just copy and paste it over here. Okay, likewise, we have multiple of them. So I'll just copy and paste it because I do have single currency code, which I want to relate to each one of them. First thing. Second, while you are going with a managed scenario, all we want is that while I'm creating an entry should get created into my database table. It means I need some sort of recognition on who created the entry, when created the entry. Okay. So definitely at ABAP layer, we do have a system variables. We can use it. But here we are trying to reduce the number of ABAP line of code we use, right? And that's the reason for each and every such field, we would be providing some semantics. Okay. So for example, I'll just say semantic. Okay. And here we'll say what is the semantics is for. So I'll just say it's for user. Okay, and here I'll just say this is my created by person, the person who is going to create it. So it means the moment a record is getting inserted into the database table, the field will get the user ID from your session, the current user information. Okay, so this is something that system will get automatically. Another thing, created at. So whenever your entry is getting created, we want that the system's date and time information should also be stored over here, saying like when this record was created. So I'll just say created at. So these are all built-in annotation, which gives the semantics, the purpose of each and every field that you are carrying. Okay, same goes over here. So for example, if I just say last change at, here it's not definitely the created at for sure, but I would have something called the current user's last change it. So there are two things we would be discussing what it is. For now, let's just go with local instance last change at, because the last change at will come into picture when we want a global information. And what does it mean? For example, if I do have a draft enable application, that's something we'll also be learning. At that point in time, last change at is also required. So currently we'll just go with the local last change at. Okay. Another thing, last change by. So I'll just go over here and just say semantic user. And we'll just say, sorry, it would be a change by in this case. Last change by, I guess that's what we can call it as, right? Okay, so we'll just generate this view. We'll activate this. So this will become our one of the data source that we'll be using going forward in my transactional processing application. Okay, same way we would also need another view. And what that another view will be called? That another view will be nothing but your booking view. Okay, so we'll also start creating something called booking view in this case. So I'll just go over here and just say I want another view. I'll just go ahead and create one more. Data definition. Again, this will be my interface view, ZI, I'll just say EO, and I'll just say booking M. I'll just say booking view or manage M. Next, and we'll create again a view entity. Okay. So now I'll just go over here and just say that this time I am interested in create another view, but here this time my data source. So I'll just go in this booking. I'll just say this time my data source will be booking. So I guess we do have another table which are on the same line. So maybe system has two of such table, I guess. That's already there. Let's just try using that. Booking M. Yeah. So ultimately, there are certain tables which are already created with the data pre-filled. So at least we can use it for certain purpose. So maybe this M is having some sort of a data that we already need, already maintain. Okay. So I just use it over here, booking M. Okay, insert. Oh, damn it. What's going wrong? Why it is not suggesting me to select all the fields? It's weird. Oh, I guess did we just specified one slash less? I guess we just missed one slash, which is this one. Now we do have the fields. Okay. So I guess we just typed the name of the table wrong. That's the reason. Okay. So now I guess you know, right, what we have to specify over here. So in this particular case as well, we have to specify a couple of things. So first thing we will be specifying is the information that's semantics.amount over here. Okay, and we'll say that what is the currency code for this. So here, if I just say control space, you will get the list of field. I'll just say currency code. Very sweet thing. Now I'll just go over here and I'll just specify last change at, and here I'll simply specify semantics over here. And here I want to again specify some system date time, but we want the system to do that thing for you. So I'll just say simply local last change at. Okay, so we do have two views created. So going forward, we won't be considering directly using the table, but instead, whenever we need the data, we'll be using the views. Whenever we want to place the data back, then we'll be using the table. So there is a base rule. Whenever you need the data, whenever you want to query the data, use the views. Whenever you want to push the data back, use the database tables. Okay, so these are first and foremost thing you should be knowing. Now, if I just try to check the data, if there are any already available as a part of this view, we should be able to get very nice information over here. Okay, so we have a good amount of data over here, and I guess maybe travel is something that we already checked some time back, so I am not going into that details right now. Okay, so these are the two things that we generated, the base views along with the semantics. Now, next step for us will be to give some sort of a transactional behavior to it. Okay, so we created interface views with certain property, which is a
Sumit, your voice is breaking.
okay, just a sec. Hello. Is it for everyone? Is it breaking for everyone? Is it clear? Can you please confirm?
Yeah, now it's fine, I think.
Okay.
Earlier it was breaking.
Okay, maybe there will be some issues with the earphone. Sorry. Let's see. I'll try to keep it as close to my mouth as I can. Okay. Don't worry. Yeah, but in case you feel you are not getting something which I am trying to convey, please feel free to ask. Don't worry. Okay. So another thing. So now let's just move one more step forward. So interface view we generated, the purpose was to get directly the data from table and provide semantic annotations. So this is the purpose of your normal views. Okay. Now there comes the R view. R views are mainly for transactional processing purpose, whose data source will be interface views. So that is something that we are going to generate. So I'll just simply say I want to generate a R view. But remember, we created a views for the read-only application as well, where we were giving the information of like who is the parent, who is the child. So here is that particular time. Okay, we have to provide the relationship saying who is the parent, who is the child, and then only your system will be able to get those informations. So I'll just simply go over here and we'll say view we want to create. I'll just say data definition. Okay, now I'll just simply say Z R for the R view. For naming convention, let's just follow EO. I'll just say travel view, but this time we are going with the transactional processing. So I'll just say travel view manage TP view. So these are TP view means for the purpose of transactional processing. I'll just go next. Next over here. And now if you see, we do have two options, whether we want to define the root or whether we want to define some sort of a non-root entity. So here we want root. So I'll just say root and we'll just say finish. So I guess it seems that BTP server is taking some time today. Okay, that's why maybe it's taking some time in order for the code and everything to get generated. Okay, now in this case, we'll specify each and every component we need, but let's just first observe. So if you see, we are getting, in case of a root view, you will always get limited amount of information, the authorization and just the end user. Okay. Other than that, rest of the thing will not be there in the case of a root view entity. First. Second, if you just go over here, you have to provide a data source. So for example, if I just say my data source in this case will be this set EO travel. So I'll just provide this. Then I'll just go over here and I'll just add all the fields that I had. So it just generated this and I'll just comment out this because we don't need this for now. And I'll just add a comma. I'll just remove a comma. Okay, so we just generated a root view. Now we'll generate a non-root view for the booking as well. And then we have to generate the parent-child relationship in between. I'll just go over here and I'll just try out. I can say data definition. I'll just say booking, and this is for my transaction processing purpose. So I'll just say booking view for manage, but it's a TP view. Let's just use the same transport over here. Let's just go next. And here we would be using a view entity. Now, why is that the case? I hope you remember. Okay, I guess once this gets generated, I'll just show you the same diagram we had seen earlier. I can say we had created earlier. I can say instead. Okay, so if you just go over here, you will see that as per what we discussed. Whenever we are generating a application, a BO, business objects should be in place, right? So business object allows us providing all the behaviors. Okay, so in order for us to generate a business object, the important things are the node, and each node has its own role. So for example, if I say travel, then it can be a route because on which each and every information is being iterated. A travel can have multiple bookings. So it means it would be the child of my travel. Okay. And travel will have a parent as well as it will be the root for this as well. So whenever you are generating a business object, there how many root view it can have? It can have multiple parent, it can have multiple child, but root will always be one. So if for an application, for example, if you are defining my root view is travel, booking cannot be a root view going forward. Pose that. Okay, because anyway, booking is going to have a parent, then booking cannot be a root. Okay, so that is how we are going to define the significance, or I can say the role of each and every view we are going to create. So that's why we generated a view entity and not the root view entity in this case. Okay, so I'll just say I'm going over here, data source is going to be my data source over here. Paste it, and now I'll just add all the elements I had. Okay, now while you are having a separate view by yourself, the important advantage that you get is that if you see I at the booking layer, right? Okay, over here, we generated a view, and here from 0 we are giving our own set of annotation which are specific to our application, right? So we know what is the purpose of each and every field. So if we are already provided the semantics at the R view layer, we are not required to do that. And if you want to ignore doing that, all you have to do is you have to just hide, or I can say remove this annotation called ignore metadata extension, or you have to set it to false. So I'll just remove this for now. So the moment you say ignore propagated annotation, the annotation which are already specified at the base view layer, data source layer, will be propagated to this view as well. So your system will get those annotation out directly. So it will be knowing what is the purpose of each and every field you specified. Okay, so I'll just activate this view also. Now, here comes the parent-child relationship. So we created the view, but now we have to specify who is the child of this root, right? So we have to specify composition. Okay, you will be specifying composition of what? So I'll just say it will be a composition of this particular view. Remember, at each layer, wherever you are specifying composition, you have to specify the same layer view. For example, if I was doing it at the I layer, you have to specify the view which are at I layer. If you are doing it at the root level, R layer, you should be specifying it at the R layer as well. If you are defining a composition at the C layer, composition layer, then you have to define the view which are type of C. Okay, so that's the architecture, a data model that you should be generating. So here I'll just say composition of this particular view, and I want to name it out as bookings. Okay, so this becomes my bookings. Now, how many bookings can a travel contain? So if it's a fresh travel, it can have a 0 as well as it can have n number of bookings possible. Okay, so I'll just write it as 0 to start. Now, in order for this view to get activated, if you see I'm getting an error saying that child entity does not have a two parent association on this view. Okay, and the booking list, this association must be included in the association list. So I'll just copy this first and I'll just add it over here. So at least that particular thing is gone. So this is how you should ideally be doing the development. Try to get rid of any possible errors. So here another thing is that it should have a two parent association specified. Okay, so if I want to specify two parent association, you will simply go in your child view over here and then you will say association to parent on this view. So I'll just go over here and simply say association to parent. Okay, and here we'll specify the view and we can name it as, so for example, I'll just say travel. So travel is the association which is parent for this. Then we'll say on dollar projection, and here we'll specify so how the data should be considered. So I'll just say travel ID of this particular projection view, which is this one, okay, should be equal to my underscore travel view, whichever I have. It also does have some primary key called travel ID. So this is something that you should be specifying. Okay, now I have to expose this particular association as well. I just save this. Now, as you can see, now this error converted into warning that the entity does not have a composition. Actually, it does have, but we have not activated that. And this is also having a warning, this is having an error. So let's just do one thing. Let's just activate both of them at the same time. So internal dependency is resolved. So I'll just say activate all. If you see the button just beside the activate, there is something called activate all. Select that and just say activate. So we now do have a very nice parent-child relationship over here, which says that, okay, I do have a travel, which is a root, and I do have this, which is a child of it. Okay. Now, next thing which will come into picture is, okay, if I just go over here, then there are two things. We can generate the behavior and we can also generate the scope. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll generate a first exposure of it. Okay, we'll generate how we can expose this. So definitely these are still our views. Okay, so in order for us to actually expose this, we need some sort of a C views on top of this. So we'll generate a C view which will be exposing this, and those views, what we call it as? We call it as a projection view. So we'll generate those projection views over here. I'll just say new over here. Okay, now we'll have a travel view. Projection view for my managed scenario. But a route will always be a route. Okay, so if it's a travel, definitely our expectation will be that it's a route view entity. Okay, so now if I just go over here, you have to specify the data source. So for C view, the data source will be R view. So I'll just copy this over here and I'll just paste it over here. But this case, as it's a C view, we should not have a select from. So I'll just remove each and everything I do have over here. Instead, I'll just say as projection on, and here I'll specify the view name. And here I'll just remove each and everything I had, and I'll just say control space, and I'll insert each and everything. Now, I do have a view which is there for the purpose of providing us the actual applications and user consumption. It means it's a provider and which also has a transactional capability. So I'll just say provider contract transactional. It will be a query. Okay, so what is the difference? That's something we'll be seeing practically in some time. So if I say provider contract transactional query, this is one. Another view we'll also need for the booking as well. So I'll just go over here and I'll just create one more C view over here. I'll just copy this and I'll just generate. I'll just go new. Okay, so in this case as well, we'll just say that CO, EO, booking. I'll just say booking, and it will be my projection view or my managed scenario. And this will be a view entity. It won't be a root view. Okay, so now again, as it's a C view, this will be again my projection view. Here I should not be specifying any sort of a select. Instead, it should be a projection. So I'll just remove this. And here I'll just say as projection on. And here I'll simply specify my view. I guess I already copied. That's good. Insert all element. I do have this format. And here again, we are the only one who specified all this annotation. So we don't want it to be ignored. Instead, we want it to be flowed, propagated, we can say. Okay, so we do have two views now. Now, one more thing. So in our view, we used to specify that parent layer composition in child, or I can say in the C layer. What we'll be doing is we have to specify a couple of things. So here, along with the bookings, you would be saying that where I should redirect this call to. So I'll just say redirect it to composition child. And here you would be specifying the child name of it. So there is a child view for that. Copy this. Okay. And now same goes over here. So in case of a parent as well. Okay. So I'll just copy this name and here you would be specifying in the booking view. And this is being redirected to my parent. Okay. So it's just saving this. Let's see. So it just say could not find this because we have not activated that, and same goes over here. The system won't be able to find this. But now if I just activate both of them at the same time, we should have this also available. So I'll just activate all group and activate this. So at least we'll have the CDS layering ready. Okay. Now next thing is that we would be generating some sort of a behavior for that. Okay, so how far we are? So we generated CDS data model, we generated data projection for that as well. Let's just do one thing. Let's just go in the flow that we created. So at least we'll have this expose. Okay, and post which let's just try to enrich and see how the read-only application is getting converted into a transactional one. So we'll generate service definition and binding. Once it's generated, next thing we'll see is the moment we add the behavior to it, we'll see the all the create, update, delete functionality started getting appear. Okay, over here. So I'll just go over here and I'll simply say, just generate a service definition over here. I'll just go over here, new. Service definition. Next. So here we are defining the scope of our application, but this time our application is a RAP application. So I'll RAP transactional application. So I'll just say ZUI travel manage. Okay. I can say service for the service. Travel manage. Many a time you would also see that people are avoiding using this SRV. Reason being, when you are generating a gateway service, it automatically adds this SRV. So many a time it also behaves as a placeholder for us to recognize if there are any gateway based services. If you are using SRV, many a time that denotes that. So if you want, you can instead use service. So there is also maybe a distinction you can keep. So I'll just say travel managed service. And then we'll just go next. And we would define a service. And then we have to define the scope of it. So each time our scope will be the views that we created, but whatever we want to expose. So for example, I want to expose this and I'll just say travel and expose this as a booking. So this just generated our service definition. Okay. So we just define the scope that our application will be generating this to information. I'll just activate this. Now, the last thing is that we would like to expose this. So there are two ways. Either you can just generate a service binding, give the name, or you can also go over here and just simply say, right click over here and you can just generate a new service binding. Try to have a habit of keeping the same name. So it would be easy for you to recognize. So I'll just generate a data V2. I can say manage travel service. Okay, so we do have a service generated, but it's not published. For you to publish it, you have to activate it first. So I'll just activate this. So it's activated and you are able to see a button called publish. The moment you publish, it generates the service artifacts. and you should be able to see the two of its block. I mean, two of the information that we expose, travel and the booking. Now, here onwards, what we are going to do is, so this seems to be the same as that of the read-only flow. And that was my main emphasis. I want to show you that the application that we are going to do over here, we are not going to change any of this flow. Instead, we are going to enrich the data model itself with the behavior. So this flow will look like same as that of the read-only behavior. So if I just switch over here, you will see that, okay, it's the same one. There is no difference when you are going with the read-only application. Instead, you are going to enrich your CDS data models over here with the behavior. So anything and everything you are going to specify will be at this layer. Even if we are providing the transactional capability, we are not going to change anything on my service layer. It's always at the CDS layers where you are going to enrich the behaviors. Okay. So I guess it's publishing the service. Maybe let it take its sweet time. But for the CDS layering, this is how the layering should be. I mean, definitely you can switch, I can say skip some of the portion. Many a time you will also see people combining these two things. But in any of the standard application you observe, this will be the layering. I guess they'll always go with the separate layering. But if you want, you can combine these two, but you will never be able to combine these two particular views, because here you would be generating the definition and here you would be generating the projection, and definition and projection has two different syntaxes. At view layer it is select, and projection view layer it is projection. So these two layers cannot be combined. They need, I guess there needs to be two separate layers for that. But yeah, these two can still be combined, but it's better to segregate those so it's easy to manage. Okay, that's how we ideally design it. So I guess once it's published, we'll just have a preview and we'll just switch back to the behavior. But in case you have any doubt, meanwhile, okay, feel free to unmute. Okay, so I guess we do have the service also published. We'll just quickly have a preview. We don't have any metadata extension and maybe we would be doing it very later. Okay, I guess currently all we need is we just want to see the service. We just want to see the initial preview of the application, how it is looking alike. Does it have any sort of create, update, delete functionality? For now, till the time we did not specify anything. That's our main intention. Okay, so I guess we don't have any buttons as such. Yeah, we'll be able to see the columns and we'll be able to see the data for sure. But we won't have any buttons which says, okay, please create or delete any information you want. No, that's not the case. Okay, so it's a plain read-only application we generated. Okay, so I'll just close that browser and now I'll just go back to my entity. Okay, now what we'll do is we have all the things that we need over here available very nicely over here. So I'll just close all the things in order for us to remove any confusion, because this is going to be the new part for you guys. Okay, so now it's closed. So now next thing that we are going to generate is a behavior, and where actually the behavior will be like. So it will be mainly on my R views. So what all R views I do have? So R view, you do have travel and booking. Okay, so you do have a travel view, you do have a booking view. So the question would be, where should I create the behavior? Should I create the behavior at the travel layer or booking layer? So the answer is you will always be able to create the behavior only at the root view layer. You cannot create a behavior at the booking layer. You will be able to create the behavior at the travel layer only. It needs a root view for the behaviors to be there. Okay, so this is my root view. So if I just, I guess earlier there used to be a option. Let's see if it provides. I'll just right click over here. If not, maybe we'll just go and create a new one as well. That's also possible. Let's see if it directly gives us an option. Yeah, here as you can see, you are getting an option called new behavior definition. So this is something that we are interested in. I'll just simply say new behavior definition. Now, as you can see, system is coming up with the same package we created because it picked it from here. It just recognize a root view entity. What does it mean? That it needs the root view entity. Even if you're going at the booking, you won't be able to generate the behavior. You have to always generate the behavior for the root view entity. Each root view will also have its own behavior for the composition it is having. So for example, my travel is having a composition called booking. So for the booking as well, a behavior will be generated as a part of the same behavior file. The same file will contain that particular information. Here we do have two options, manage and unmanage. We'll start with the manage one first. Okay, I'll just go next. Okay, and then you are going to say finish. Okay, so this is how it will be looking alike. So as you can see, there are a couple of things. It says define behavior for your root view, and you will also get any of the, as I mentioned, any of the composition it is having. So for example, if you would have specified n number of association over here, no, it's not possible to create create a behavior for an association. For you to have any sort of transactional behavior, it should be a composition. Even if it's a one, for example, for one booking, I want contact detail that there can only be one contact person, but I want to manage it. I want to save the data for it. Then it can be a composition. It cannot be a association over here. Okay. So same way over here, the moment you specify any composition at the view layer, the same will have its own set of behaviors. Here, as you can see, I do have defined behavior for this. I do have defined behavior for booking as well. I do have behaviors for both of them. From the view layer, it automatically derives the tables. The tables it derives are from the layering. So system detected that, yeah, you do have a view and which is having a table inside it. So I think this is just a proposal. Okay, this is just a proposal that this is a table that I feel you want to save the data. If you are willing to deviate from it, you can also do that. That's also possible. Okay. So these are one thing. There is a very first and foremost thing over here called behavior definition. This is still not the projection. This is just the definition. And what does it mean? It's like a view definition. Whatever you define over here does not necessarily start appearing at your service layer, at your application layer. Instead, the moment you project it in the C view, right, then only it starts appearing. Same goes over here. So there is a behavior definition. Anything you define over here does not necessarily be part of your application. Only if you create and expose it to the projection, you will be able to use it going forward. Okay, so let's just first furnish the, I can say behavior definition, then we'll go in the projection mode. Okay, so this is how it is looking alike. So now let's just go one by one and let's just say, let's just try to observe the errors that it is having. Okay, so here as you can see, I am having a couple of warnings that the class does not exist. Then the travel ID is part of the entity, but there is no field called travel ID. Okay, so as you can see, what the system is trying to say is that you are saying that please map all the fields to this DMO travel, right? You are saying please map all, whenever I'm saying manage, it means whenever I'm getting a backend call, please directly place the value into the table. I don't want to be mediator. So, but there is a field called travel ID, correct? But if I just go over here in the view layer, then there is something called travel ID, which is T and I capital. There is no underscore. Does this two field means the same or not? That's something that you should be specify, or you have to specify that no, I don't care of that field. I don't know what that field is. That's not the same field. So it says that field travel ID is part of the entity, but it's not part of the table that you specified, which should persist the data. Then either you should be providing a mapping or you have to mark that field as a read only, because I don't know where to store the information. Okay. So here what you have to do is you have to provide some sort of a mapping. Okay, and how you would be able to provide the mapping? That's also one of the key aspects while you are defining any sort of such information. Okay, so what you will do is I'll just show you here. You would specify something called mapping for, and in this particular one, you will specify the any sort of tables or any include. For example, in many a time, your table might have some includes as well. Your EKKO table might have MEPO views, MEPO structure, sorry. So those structures can also be part of the mapping. All you have to do is you have to provide the mapping that which data should be mapped to which field. Okay, so I'll just map over here, and here you will specify it like this. Then you have to do the mapping individually. So you will get some value help, but it's your responsibility to provide the mapping for each and every field. For example, if I'm just saying travel ID, then the travel ID, okay, over here, which is a property of a view, okay, should be mapped to what? So I'll just say it should be mapped to my travel ID, which is a table field. And there should be a semicolon. So the moment you do this, as you can see, you are done with this error because at minimum, it needs the key field. Rest, all the fields are also required, but at minimum, it needs the key field. Rest, all the fields, even if you're passing the information, the mapping is not, the system won't process the value. But at minimum, the minimum fields that system needs is the key fields. Okay, that is why the mapping is there. Okay, rest everything we'll also discuss what it is. So we'll go one by one, but first let's just get rid of the warnings that we do have. Okay, I'll just say mapping, or over here we'll specify this. And here we'll specify a couple of things. So here we'll again specify that the travel ID you do have is nothing but this particular travel ID over here. And the booking ID that you do have over here is this particular booking ID I do have over here. Okay, but we are required to provide the mapping for each and every of them. Otherwise, the manage behavior. Otherwise, if someone is specifying booking date, then it won't be persisted for sure because it does not have a mapping. The data would be gone. Okay. Now, another thing over here is that we can provide alias like ZREO travel, but what should I call it as? Should I call it by technical name? No, you can use an alias. So where this alias will be used, it will be used in the EML statement. I can say the entity manipulation language. Whenever you are required to write some sort of a business logic by reading the data, by updating it, by deleting it, by doing anything. Okay, at that point in time, rather than using the name, you can go by the alias. So here I'll just say the alias for this is travel, for example, and the alias for this will be my booking. Okay. Now, okay, so again, as you can see, I am just left with one warning which says that this particular travel does not have a class. Okay, but as you can see, even if I click over here, okay, it just gave me one suggestion that you can create a behavior implementation class. So whenever I mention, as I mentioned, okay, I'll just go over here. Yeah. So whenever you are going with a manage aspect, the standard CRUD operation is something that the standard SAP will take care of. But whenever there is a business logic, which is specific to your business, right? At that point in time, we need some place where we can write our own set of logic. And that's where the behavior implementation class will come into picture. That's this. Now we do have two options. Okay. In case of behavior implementation, we do have two nice options. Either you can provide the implementation class at the top layer. That's also possible. Or if you want, you can also provide the business implementation class somewhere over here as well. If you see implementation in class, so there are two chances. Okay, either you can provide a class which is going to take care of each and every implementation you do, at the root layer. So for your travel relevant operations, for your booking relevant operation, you will be able to write the logic in the central. That's a right design. That's how you should be doing it. Because there can be some parent-child relationship which needs to be considered before writing your logic. At that point in time, it makes sense if you have a central class. But if you want a separate class as well, you can also define a separate class over here. So I'll just go with the best case scenario. I'll just go over here and I'll just simply say that no, I want this particular travel to have a common class, which is this particular central class. So I'll just go over here. I'll just click on this and I'll just say create implementation class. Okay. Now, to create a behavior, you have to first activate the behavior. To create a behavior implementation class, you have to first activate the behavior definition. I'll just activate this. So it's like service definition binding. For you to publish, you have to activate the service binding first. Okay, now it's activated. So now if you just go and click on this, you will get that create behavior implementation. It will generate a class. Okay, and it will say behavior implementation for this. The name of it will always be again. So if you see, you have couple of things which are of the same name. There is a view entity, root view entity whose name is this. There is a behavior definition whose name is also the same. And there will be a behavior implementation class with the same name. So this name will follow for each and every object you are going to create. I'll just go next. Okay, and then you are going to say finish. Okay, so the system generated certain things. So I'll just activate this. So here you can activate whole class. I'll just activate this class as well. Okay, now if I just go over here, simply, I'll just go and do a syntax check. I won't have any warning. Okay, now let's just go through each and every component. Okay, so what we did is we just generated a behavior. So as you can see here, you will see one more component as a part of CDS, which says behavior definition. And then there should be some source code, which is nothing but a class, which is again having the class for this behavior. At behavior level, you will see each and everything which is having a root or the composition. So there is a root, there is a composition. For each and every of them, you will need a behavior. Now, as a part of which you have to specify the alias, you have to specify where the data will be stored, and you have to specify where the lock will be put. So for example, if I'm saying a person is creating a travel, or let's just go in another direction. Let's just say there is a travel and some person is going to edit that particular travel information. Okay. But for example, if I am editing, another person should not be able to edit. Okay. So when I say lock, it should be put at the parent layer, because for example, I'm not doing any change in the travel header layer, but instead I'm going to do some change at my booking information layer. I'm going to change my booking date. Okay. Or I'm going to put some discount code, anything I can do. Okay, so at that point in time as well, the lock should be put at the parent layer. So even if in any of the child entity, someone is doing some change, my parent, my whole travel should be locked. And that's the meaning of a lock master. And as you can see in the child, you do have an option of lock dependent by. Here you can also specify separate locks, but the SAP's best design says that always put a lock on the child, on the parent, or I can say on the root. Always put a lock on the root. Okay. Then there is something called authorization. So authorization is something that will come into picture, I guess, after some time that we'll see. But many a time what happens is many a people would have an authorization. Many a time you would see that your application would have a create, update, multiple scenarios or copy functionality or triggering some sort of a approval cycle and multiple things. But not all the people will have the capability to do that. Okay, so what all functionality that person should be able to see, that is being defined by the authorization. Okay, so authorization master ideally takes care of which all features should be allowed okay, to which particular set of people. That's something that you should be defining over here. Now, in case of a locking as well, you will see that there is something called E tag. Okay, so when I say E tag is nothing but again one of the locking scenario. Ideally, RAP goes with a locking mechanism where I mean we'll have a dedicated session on locking, I guess, after some time. But when I say locking, okay, then there should be some way with the help of which we can apply the lock. So you would have seen whoever I guess has worked on the REST API earlier would be knowing how locking works in a SAP GUI system and how the locking works in the SAP REST API. Okay, I can say locking mechanism. So how the locking mechanism works. So when I say locking mechanism, you would see that, for example, let's just take a scenario of SAP GUI. Okay, for example, there is a PO and you are trying to edit it. Then at the table layer, there will be some enqueue function which will put a lock on your particular tables, that particular record. So no one other than that person will be able to edit it till the time that person does not save it. Okay, it means that is something called a pessimistic lock. That someone would spoil the data if someone else is doing some sort of a change. That's why we are locking it via the enqueue functions. But when it comes to a browser-based technology or a REST API, right? You would be knowing when I say enqueue function or dequeue function, right, which is responsible for locking or unlocking, till when it is valid. Till the time you are in the particular SAP session, right? So enqueue or dequeue, or I can say locking is valid only during SAP session, right? Now, as you know, REST API is a stateless API. What does it mean? That it does not remember the state. Once you requested the data in the edit mode, it provided you the data and it's gone. I guess system does not know, okay, what was the uh, person, or I can say who is the person who actually requested for the data in edit mode, and should I put the log, whether the log is persisted? No, the REST API does not allow you to do that. So earlier, as you can see, the locking was being done on the server side. Server who is serving the client. Okay, server side. These days, the locking is done in the clients on client side. So in case of a REST API, locking will be done on client side. So what would happen is the moment someone requests the data, there will be something which is very unique. For example, a travel information. Then when that particular travel information, or I can say what is the latest record. So for example, if I just say travel one, that was created on for example, 11th of Feb 2023 at 9:50 a.m. 9:50 a.m. 23 second. Okay, this is when it was created and when it was last changed. For example, let's just say it was last changed on the same time. Okay, now if someone requests the data, for example, there are two users who are going simultaneously over here. There is one user. Okay, and there is another user who is also requesting the same sort of data. At the same point in time, they are requesting the information. Both of them will get the data. But along with the data, what the system will also pass is this particular change on information. Not necessarily change on, but something that you point. Okay, that this is going to be unique for each and every user. I am going to change it each and every time my user does some change. That's a field that can behave as a E tag. That you are tagging that particular field responsible to ensure that whether it's a most recent data or that's a old data. Okay, so for example, along with the data he requested that give me the travel ID, give me the let's just say agent name, and likewise, along with that, one thing will be piled up along with it is the E tag field. So for example, you can decide in any of the field. For example, I am making this change on as a E tag. That my change on is a E tag. So along with this information will also be flowing. So you will see that this person is getting this information. Okay. And now another person is also requesting the same information at the same time, so this person will also get the same information. Now, by the time this person does anything and just click on a save button, okay, this person does that. And after doing this, this information is now being saved as the current record on database is now having 952, that it was last changed on 952. Okay, so if any point in time this person also tries to save the information, while saving, each and every person has to say, also revert back with the e tag they are having, with the change on information they are having, that which particular when they had read a particular record. So he'll say that I have a copy which was read on 950. Then the system will verify, no, but the recent information which is there into the database before you update anything is 952. It means you are trying to update a old record. That's why the update record cannot be processed. So that's why the information which this person updated will be persisted. Otherwise, what would happen is if this information is not validated, system might override whatever this guy has done with the request which this person is sending. That's where the e tag is coming into picture, and that's where if you see there is something called e tag. That e tag should allow you locking. So there are e tag of multiple kind: e tag master and e tag dependent. So here I also, as we understood the locking, e tag is also the same. It's also there for the same purpose. So we'll say that e tag will be over here, and the purpose will be that this particular person should also adhere to the last change by information. So you will be having the e tag over here, and my child also should follow the same, but the e tag will be of that of the parent, that any of the travel information, be it a travel or a booking, anything is getting changed. Anyway, header information will also get the timestamp. So if header record is also changed, then also booking information cannot get changed. So that is the meaning of this. So I'll just go over here, and here there is something called e tag, and there is something called dependent by. Dependent, and I'll just say by, and here you can specify the name of association. So for example, dependent by travel. So as you can see, log dependent by, same way e tag dependent by. Okay, I'll just do a syntax check. I guess it's saving the information. Okay, what is the issue? The dependent entity can't have identical name field. Okay. Okay, I guess we have two fields with the same name, and that's the reason that it's not allowing us doing this particular activity over here. So maybe what ensure that the field, there are two options. Okay, either you can change the field name at the booking layer, or you can specify the field name directly over here, because the field name in both the cases are same, and that's the reason that there is a restriction. So here the same field is there. That's what the system is recognizing. So I'll just say e tag master over here. I'll just activate this. So this is providing the locking. Okay, now comes the portion which is there in the curly bracket. So now, as you can see, the parent is having a create functionality, update functionality, and delete functionality. That's not hard and fast. If you want that your parent should not be able to update it, you can remove any of this. Okay. Then you are having that your booking should be created only using the book travel. No one should be able to directly create the booking. So that's why if you see, because that's a composition, right? Now, what does the composition say? That a child cannot exist without a parent. Exactly. So if that's the case, then I should not be allowing a direct post call on my booking. Instead, it should be only navigated via the travel and the association of it. Okay, and that's why you will see that association of booking is allowing the booking creation, but direct node of the booking is not having any create capability. Okay, so that's what you should be specifying. Second, for your child node, the travel ID is a read only, because that's the same thing that you are passing, or I can say that you are creating over here will be passed on to this particular travel ID. No new information will be populated over here, because if you are changing this information over here, then parent-child relationship will be gone, because you are saying that the two are related using the travel ID. Okay, And if that's the case, then the relationship will be gone. If you change this, that's why you can have multiple information that you can specify. Okay. So likewise, you can also specify certain things. So for example, let's just say for my travel to work, okay, what all things are necessary. So for example, here I am simply saying that for me to have a travel, I'll just open the travel view over here, the R view. For me to have the travel, I want that the travel ID should be generated. My customer ID is mandatory, and begin date and end date are these something that should be there. Without this, I cannot proceed. Okay, so if that's the case, then what you can do is you can simply say that I want a list of fields. So ideally, you would see that the positioning does not have much significance in the curly bracket. Yeah, positioning has some significance while it comes to this. Lock master should become before the E tag. I cannot put E tag over here. So these positioning makes sense. But when it comes to this field, you can put anything, I guess above and below. I guess there is much less restriction on that. Otherwise, RAP is a very restricted language. It has very much amount of check. And why is that? Because as you can see, like we used to have in JavaScript, use strict, then manage as well. It follow the strict syntaxes. That's why there is something called strict on the top. If you remove strict, you will be, I guess you can avoid certain things, but that's not a future proof. When you say strict, it means whatever development you are doing, if you are getting any warning on error, if you are resolving this in future, also your service will be intact. After any sort of upgrade, your development won't get hampered. Your service will still be running. That's the meaning of a strict. Okay. So now, for example, I want to make certain fields read only. I want to make certain fields mandatory. So for example, I want to make field read only. So what is that field that I want to make read only? So for example, I'll just go over here and I'll just say field, and here I'll just say I want to make certain field. I'll just put in a bracket. As you can see, if I just say control space, okay, there is something called read only. Maybe I guess it's taking some time in order for us to provide the suggestion. Now in this particular one, if you just go over here, then what all fields I don't want to get changed. So for example, created by, created at, and all these things are something that should not be editable on my UI, right? So if you want a gray out field on your UI, you can specify read only. So I'll just provide this 4 fields, and I'll just simply say that no, this 4 fields, no one should be able to edit on my UI. Okay, I'll just go over here, copy this, and this will get the value only via the semantics. Okay, I'll just go over here and just arrange them properly a bit. Okay, now there can be certain things which you feel that these are the things that I anyway need. I cannot have any fields, any booking without this, any travel without this. So for that, there is something called field and there is something called mandatory. Okay, you can provide such a field which will decide, okay, what all things should be there, which should be there. Okay, no one should be able to, okay, get rid of it. So I will say that in my travel, the customer ID, booking date, and end date, for example, this is something that I want, or let's just say agency ID as well. So let's just make that these fields are mandatory. So I'll just copy this, go over here and just paste it over here. So this fields will get asterisk sign, but one thing to note down over here, what will be the output behavior in this case? Okay, so the moment you specify a read only going forward on your UI, even if you do have editable mode of the object page, you will see that these fields will be grayed out. The moment you specify mandatory, you will see a star, a strict icon, like you, whenever you are filling a form online, you will see that there is something called star asterisk icon. The same will be there in case you specify mandatory, but read only does not allow you to specify any values, but mandatory still allows you to get rid of specifying those values. It just specifies the asterisk sign. It does not have any built-in validation to check whether you are passing this field or not. And for that, we have to specify n number of validation. That's something we'll be seeing maybe in some time. Okay. So now, as you can see, I do have this. And now for the rest of the things as well, we have to provide the mapping, because I'm not sure like if my user is passing some information in a begin date, where should that information be flowing? I don't know, right? Because I don't have that information specified. And that's the reason what you will be doing is you will be specifying mapping for each and every field you do have. So here I'll just simply go and specify that I do have a travel ID, and likewise I do have this information as well, and I want to specify the mapping for that. Okay, so that will be my another activity. So as you can see here, we are just preparing the skeleton. Here we are not writing any sort of ABAP logic till now. So this should be agency ID. Here I have to specify customer ID because the names are differing. If the names are same, okay. So for few fields, for example, if the name is same as that of the database table, then you don't need a mapping. If the names are differing, then you will need the mapping. That's the meaning of a mapping. Any questions at any point in time, feel free to unmute. Okay, I feel that, okay, this will be a vast topic, definitely, because this is I can say bit new, I guess. This is just coming into the market. That's the reason. Any doubts for, I guess, anyone is having, feel free to unmute.
Not as of now, Sumit.
No worries. No worries. Okay, so this is for the travel, and now we'll do it for the booking. Okay, so we need the booking view as well, which is over here. Okay, so I'll just copy this information directly from here, and I'll just go back and just specify this information. So I guess we had a couple of things already specified, so I'll just avoid those. I'll just remove this. Okay, I'll just format this and I'll just activate this. So this was my behavior definition. We'll see how it will behave like when we are saying transactional processing, what all role it will play. Okay, but for now, let's just say this is my behavior definition. Now comes the role of behavior projection. But before going over there, let's just see that we generated a behavior definition. Is there any impact on on the, I can say, service, or I can say, is there any service transactional behavior that those are already being exposed using this? So I'll just go over here, travel. Let's just preview this. Okay, so but still, as you can see, I don't have any such functionality still available. I am still able to only view the data. I don't have any design which I have not placed anyway, and I don't have any sort of edit icon also available. So that's not there. Okay, so I'll just go over here, just close this, and I'll just go back, and we'll see the behavior projection. So here we right click on the behavior definition, we generated the behavior definition. I mean, we right click on the RV, we generated behavior definition. Now let's just go over here. Just right click on this and just say new behavior. Let's see what it is trying to show us. So as you can see, it's called behavior definition, but the moment you have a projection view, it will suggest that you want to have a projection view. There is something called interface like a class and interface relationship, same way. So we'll learn about that, I guess, in future. But as of now, let's just say we want to have a behavior projection. So what all things you want to project when it comes to the capability of it? Okay, that's the meaning of a behavior projection. So I'll just go next over here. Okay, and I'll just say finish. Okay, now as you can see, the moment we specified this, system inherited certain thing. Okay, it inherited that you are having a create, update, delete relationship, you are having an association. So there is a keyword called use. So if I just compare this to information, I'll just go over here. That this is my behavior definition, which says that I do have a what all capability I do have and all the things. But there is specific keyword in the projection which says use. So whatever capability you are allowing to use, those capability will be provided to the exposed service, because what you are exposing C view. So whatever is there will get exposed. So again, let's just provide a same alias over here. Now let's just provide a okay. So you are saying that I want to have a create, update, delete functionality, and I want to have a capability of booking creation when we are going with a, I can say, travel creation. Okay, so via the travel booking can be created, but via the booking travel cannot be created. So I'll just activate this. So this is my projection. So here, anything and everything that you are specifying. So for example, here we had only create, update, delete. That's why you are able to see that. For example, if I'm just saying that I don't want to have update functionality, then you will start getting an error that your base view, or I can say your behavior definition, does not have update capability, so you cannot have it. For example, I am generating a custom action over here saying cancel booking. Okay, I can have an action also created. We'll be creating it. So the moment you are saying cancel booking, it won't be by default available over here. For you to actually use those action, you have to specify it with the use keyword. The moment you say use, your behavior or your service will start getting those capability. So I just activated that, and now I'll just go back over here, and now let's just refresh this. Many a time it takes some time in order for it to get reflected. So here as you can see, it's very quick. So the moment we say use that, we are able to see the create and delete capability started flowing up over here. Okay, and here we are able to see all those stuff that we found. Okay, I guess it's what did just happen. Okay, now we do have the information as well. Okay, so the system started flowing in all those information that we thought of. Okay, so this is how you will be having a create, update, and delete capability. Now, if you just go in the object page, definitely you don't have any information, but you will have the edit and delete page. So now we'll be enriching it like we did earlier with the information for the selection field, filters, and I can say all the object page information. Then we'll be going into edit. We'll be providing the values. The moment we click on save, we should expect that this is getting saved. Okay, but one thing we all should be knowing is this. I'll just go one more step back over here into the slides, that how this capability is being provided. So now I think some of the portion of this should become clear to you guys. Okay, so maybe you would already start seeing couple of things. So for example, manage BO runtime. It's it ultimately allows you, I mean, it was a kind of a maybe all screenshot. It said not yet available or find granular reusable code available. Technical implementation tasks taken over by business object infrastructure. standard CRUD operations are available out of the box. So the standard CRUD operations which are there, which are available out of the box, you are not required to write anything. So developer focuses on adding the BO specific business logic via dedicated code exit, determination, validation, and action. So now many of you who already would have worked on the BOF based implementation would be knowing that, yeah, now it's the business object term is now getting real. So in BOF as well, we used to have the determination, validation, and action. So the sames are also possible over here. So currently we just generated. Now we'll be seeing how the out of the box behavior is being provided. After that, we'll also be enriching it with the determination, validation, and action to see how multiple things can be determined, how I can validate those things, and how I can have custom actions. But one important thing is that I can have a manage runtime. Okay, this manage runtime will get the data for S4HANA, and then there will be two kind of phases. I can say one interaction phase and one save phase. So these are the two phases. When I say interaction phase is where simply, I guess as the keyword suggests, is where when your user is interacting. While your user is interacting, each and every information will be stored into the transactional buffer. So this particular left-hand side portion will be active. Till the time your user does not click on a save icon, your data won't be persisted. Okay. So interaction phase allows you to read any data, going in the edit mode, modifying it, storing again it in the transactional buffer, and providing the required locking mechanism. That's what the interaction phase will do. But afterwards, once a user clicks on the save, then not from the interaction phase, but via the transactional buffer, which would already have been updated via the user's interaction, will be read out. Okay, via what? Via the standard framework which is available first. And if you're writing any business logic, then you can read the transactional buffer via the EML statement, entity manipulation language statements. We'll be using that. So you can read the transactional buffer via EML statement and you can save the information. You can also put some validation before the final save happens if you want any sort of number generation. For example, if I'm creating a travel, I want a unique ID to be generated for each travel. Only when a user is finally clicking on save, you can have an adjust number which is responsible for such number generation. And then the final save call will be made. Ensure that this final save which you are doing over here is a place of no return. When I say place of no return, it means that here you cannot abort any process. Once the data is over here, the expectation will be that it's fully valid data. In case you want to do any sort of such validation that these are restrictions, this data should not be allowed, then you can raise such a message, okay, via the, I can say earlier phases. Then in the interaction phase, you can have the validation as well, which can help you with the task. In the save sequence as well, check before save allows you to do the validation. So these are the place where you can restrict such data being flowed the moment you raise any message. The next phase, for example, if you are raising any message over here, the adjust number and save will be skipped. It won't be called. Instead, a user will get an error message on the UI. Okay, so these are the phases, or I can say this is the life cycle of a RAP BO execution. This is a skeleton wise life cycle. This is a execution life cycle that you should be knowing. Okay. Now, next thing we'll be doing is we'll be enriching it with some sort of a UI. So at least we'll be able to see how the information is being persisted, and going forward, we'll be seeing it rest of the capability. So any doubts till now, any one of you?
Sumit, the managed the BO runtime is running inside either SCP, S4HANA, or an ABAP environment.
Correct.
These are three separate things. These are like SCP is not an S4HANA system, and ABAP environment is not an S4HANA system.
So the thing is, if you see, okay, so it says that what are the examples? It says example. It's not saying the places where actually this can run. It says the new application which are on our SAP Cloud platform. You will see that those are getting generated using RAP manage runtime. That's the one of the example where you can find such application. Another one is the ABAP runtime that we are currently working on. In BTP, we generated ABAP runtime. That's where. And the last one is where again you can find is SAP S4HANA going forward post 1909, or I can say starting 2020 on-premise system S4HANA also started supporting manage and unmanaged reps application generation. So there also you can find and generate such an application. So these are the examples of it.
Sumit, just an out of the way question. We
Yeah,
are
yeah, please.
currently in BTP working on an ABAP environment. So how
Exactly.
is this ABAP environment means is does it have a business application apart from we are practicing right now on it? So is
Mhm.
this does this have a business use this ABAP environment? Because
Yeah,
it certainly
definitely.
is not an S4 system, right? The one we are using on BTP.
It's a SAP public cloud environment. ABAP
Okay.
environment is one of the, I can say, platform, I can say developer SDK you have been provided, using which
Okay.
you are jumping as a developer and doing the development. But for end user, what will be the usable thing is
Okay.
when you are generating the service, consuming it via the application, via the business application studio, and then you are giving the output. So those deployed service will be for the end user's consumption. So for your end user, ABAP environment does not make sense. But how you would be
Okay.
able
Okay.
to?
So
Okay, so
like
that
ABAP environment is an SDK. Is an
is an
SDK that
SDK.
is okay.
Exactly. Huh. And it be it trial, be it real project and development environment, ABAP environment is there, and that's how you will be able to generate this application on a cloud. On premise is same, I guess it will continue to be there, whatever is there right now.